This guy is choosing to live the life of Riley right now.
He's got a bounce in his step.
Yeah, he sure does. Guy looks about 10 years younger already. Brian Snitker joining us here in studio. Snit, we appreciate you coming by and spending some time with us this morning.
Well, great to be here. Am I cooking?
Yep, there we go.
All right, good. Yeah, good to be here.
Good morning.
Thanks.
You
morning.
seem to have a little bit of a bounce as you walked in today.
Some pep in your step.
A little lighter load, I guess.
Yeah, do you feel a little lighter?
Yeah, I do. Honestly, I'm. I don't think I'm going to feel what I'm going to feel till February. But you know what? I'm still going to spring training, so that'll be nice.
Are you bored yet?
Oh no! Good God, no.
Good for you.
Yeah, basketball, or I'm sorry, baseball, football, golf. All that, following the kids around. So I'm really, but the October schedule's full.
I just remember you saying when we talked at spring training last year that you were packing the lunches for the grandkids for their baseball games, and now you get to be a part of that every day. And I like what you said. You missed a lot with your kids, and now you kind of get the second chance with the grandkids.
Yeah, I missed everything. I think I saw 3 innings of Troy's high school career, and that was because I was home for Aaron's graduation, and I had stern instructions when I went to that first game of a doubleheader to get my ass back before before her party. So and now I packed Sunday morning. I was up early making sandwiches, and we went to an all day in the rain baseball tournament, 3 games, and loved every second of it.
Do you know what was funny? There was a day this past spring training when it was 3 o'clock in the afternoon. We got done with the show, and next thing you know, we're by the cages, and we hear a noise, and it's you with your grandchildren, and you're literally doing flips.
Yeah.
With your grandchildren at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and it looked like, with all due respect, it might have been the best part of your day.
Well, it was a good part of the day, and especially with the 5-year-old is down there, and he made me flip him every ball in the basket, and it never got tired. And I was, because my thing was, who's going to pick these up? That's more I was worried about. But it was that, and that's a part that they've grown up loving and looking forward to. And I told when I broke the news to him last week, I said, I tried to corral them in the living room, and I said, fellas, the next time you go to a Braves game, Grandpa's going to be with you. And they looked at me a little bit, and they said, you mean you're not going to manage? And I said, nope. And they got the biggest smiles on their face, and it's like, they said, you can see us in the spring and the summer, and I said, I absolutely can. And
Can I do a true confession? Yeah. I sat with your daughter at a game not too long ago, and I would imagine if there was a family vote, I know which way she would have voted. She was ready for you.
Yeah.
And I believe she used the expression, come home.
Well, she did. And she told me that later in the summer. She goes, Dad, can you just come home? And that kind of resonated pretty big with me. And I thought, and I said before, I think this is one of those businesses that it gets in our blood, and you're running on adrenaline for 7 months a year, and it's hard. I think I said earlier, if you wait to retire till you're ready, you never will. But I feel really, really good right now.
Brian Snitker is here in studio with us, and I know you talked a lot a week ago about the decision and the process, but Alex said that you felt like the weight of the world was lifted off your shoulders. Did that reaction surprise even you?
Yeah. I didn't. I told Ronnie that, shortly after, the middle of the week last week when everything went down. And it was true. I mean, because you don't ever... you don't know how many times I got yelled at over the course of a winter for not paying attention. And I would tell you, because I'd be in the shower in December, and thinking about lineups and roster configurations and things like that. And I always tell her, I said, you know what, I'm one of 30 in the world. And this thing never shuts off. I mean, I'm rolling over, not sleeping in the winter. And because you're worried about what's going on the next year.
Do you know some of the numbers we gave them this morning and leading up to know that you were coming in? There have been over 2,000 guys that have managed in Major League Baseball. Only 87 have won a World Series. I mean, rolling around in your head, we talk about, what are the odds? Well, what are the odds you get your first job at 60-plus? What are the odds that you actually get your job at 60-plus, you end up winning 800 games? What are the odds that throw on top of that a World Championship when only 87 people in the history of this game has ever done it? I'm really going to ask you this. I know you've always had a great appreciation for being afforded an opportunity. When you think about it now, did you enjoy it as much as maybe you should have? Or in the middle of it, you really almost can't enjoy it as much as you should have?
Probably that. I mean, I don't know that, this isn't a job it is fun. It's what we do. It's how we're wired. there's nothing, and I know what Tito was talking about when he said he missed the 9th inning. That's the most gut-wrenching, excruciating time of your day. But I'll tell you what, when it goes right and things happen, you go in there to the office and kind of sit back, and that's a pretty good feeling. But it's not like, I don't know that, I said we're all comfortably miserable in this game.
Sounds
you
like
want to
our
get right
business.
down to it. I know. And that, you know what? It's like, how many people do you talk to, all your buddies and everything? You're sitting around watching a football game, drinking a beer, and it's like, did you have fun at work this week? And you know what? It's not shit. It's not, a lot of laughs and all that. I mean, but it's what we do, and and it is fun. I have fun with the players. I have fun, with the relationships and creating the memories.
Coaches' dinners.
I'm sorry?
Coaches' dinners?
Yeah.
Because I know you were big on that.
Yeah.
I know that you were big, and I'd imagine, again, the good news is you still have an opportunity to do that. Now, corralling everybody up in that group, and it might be a different group and everything else. But are those the things that are actually more enjoyable than the actual games themselves?
Yeah, absolutely. I used to love to get a cup of coffee, like especially on a day game, and I'd get there. I wouldn't even get undressed yet. I'd get a cup of coffee, and I'd go into the coach's room. We sit and talk and banter and things, and those are good times with the guys. And it's a special group of guys, and we have a special group of guys there. And but that just. Yeah, it's what I did for 50 years, and I'm still going to do it at a lesser degree now. And but it's you look back and I don't know that I'd change anything, quite honestly. There's probably certain things I'd handle differently, but that's how many times do all of us do that? Whether it's with our kids and our job or whatever, you look back and you learn from those experiences. But I'm. I feel good right now. It's going to be a different feeling when the season starts, and I'm not stressed out for 6 months and looking at the clock to go to the ballpark and things like that. I'm going to miss a lot of it. You don't do something this long and have it be your life and not miss some of it. I understand that that's going to happen, but I'm also going to be, I think, going to stay really, really busy on the other end.
Brian Snitker is here in studio with us. How surprised were you when the truck came out, the trip to Hawaii, and then the announcement for the Hall of Fame next year? And a lot of people weren't happy that you didn't get the ultimate send-off. I think you handled that well, too. You said, that'll be the send-off. That'll be the party.
Yeah. And you know what? How many people in this business actually get to ride down the street in the back of a pickup truck and wave to everybody in our business? I mean, there's
87 guys in the history, and they weren't really doing parades.
No,
in the beginning of all of this.
You know what? I had a really great career. I'm not a Hall of Famer. I didn't do this for 22, 23 years. I saw Bobby the other day, and I went over and I was like, Skip, I had no idea how you got through all this, but he started younger. It was a different climate than it was now, but still, I mean, I look up and I remember sitting in the dugout watching the countdown on his retirement and the numbers going up with every win, over 2,000 and all this, and it just blows me away that because you'll never see that again. Guys aren't going to be afforded that.
Spring training used to be, I was going to say a little different. Spring training used to be a lot different in a lot of ways. When you were coaching, and then when you were sort of around, and it was, where the hell was it? West
Palm.
West Palm. I'm drawing blanks. You had to step over a chain link fence, and that was security. It was like one link fence, and nobody ever looked for credentials. Now it's a business, and everybody knows it's business. But when you would go to, let's say, Fort Lauderdale and the Yankees, where they were, and there would be Mickey and Whitey and Yogi, because that's what spring training was. You'd see guys who played in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and you saw that. My guess is you had an incredible appreciation for all of that.
I used to love, I think, back when like Bobby was managing and Joe, and I was like an extra coach to do the work. I could throw batting practice all day, and I could catch if they needed me to. And I used to love to go to Fort Lauderdale. And I remember one time Tommy Aaron said, "Go back and ask Yogi what time we hit." And I thought, you got to be kidding me. You want me to go ask
Mr.
Yogi?
Barra?
Oh, exactly. I did sneak it. He was sitting back there on a baseball bat, and I was like, "Sir, what time do we hit?"
What do you mean? You did the same exact thing as Yogi Berra for a living. You were both catchers in professional baseball.
Well, he was quite a bit.
But when you go to Vero, like you would go to Vero.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Oh, no.
You would
See all the Dodger greats. And I remember Tommy Lasorda walking in and they hail to the king or whatever, the presidential thing. And he's waving to everybody. And that was, I used to, and I just sit there. And I remember some of these, I remember Luke Appling was with us one time and we were sitting in the dugout in Fort Lauderdale and Reggie Jackson came over because I think they were together with the A's and Luke was a coach with the A's or doing something with him, and he came over and he pulled up his undersleeve and this massive forearm come out, and he looked and he started shooting the crap with Luke, and I thought, my God, this is so cool, just watching those guys and seeing them up close and being on the field, before pregame and things like that. It was amazing for me.
Well, that's the great thing about baseball, right? I mean, you don't get that opportunity in any other sport to have. There's more downtime where you can actually have conversations with people, especially during spring training.
No, it's amazing, and that was really cool back then when more of the veteran guys and the alumni and the Hall of Famers would show up, and I think COVID year had a lot to do with that. It kind of took it out of there, and you didn't have the accessibility to guys, and there were too many restrictions.
And you could say a lot about George Steinbrenner, but the guy ended up being a winner. There were other layers to him, but I thought his respect for the past of the Yankees to bring all those guys back, and he put them on a payroll, and they'd have a couple of weeks down in spring training. It is. I thought George thought it's what's supposed to happen, but I know that I would go to those places, and I'd be like, I have access to go talk to that guy. Yeah. That's kind of incredible.
It's cool.
And Moose Gowan just be sitting there. And you go, I think I'm allowed to go talk to him. And you hope that you never lose sort of the kid feeling about it. And you're right, Nick. Not only gives you more time, but how many CEOs are really, good storytellers? This sport is a little bit different because there's a history begets history begets history.
Yeah, it's in that time in spring, what used to... Golly, did we ever look forward to that and how cherished it was. And you don't see it a lot anymore. I mean, you see a few guys, but not many. And it is kind of a different, I don't know, quite honestly, if we brought some of our Hall of Famers in, if a lot of our guys, younger guys, might even know who the heck they are.
But you saw guys like Stargell and Bob Gibson in this organization, too.
We did. No, those were the coaches. I remember... when Gibby came in and Rube Walker and Dal Maxville and guys like that with Joe Torre and then Chuck brought in Stargell and all them kind of guys. I was blessed to forge a relationship with Willie because when I was in the minor leagues, I think it was probably when Chipper was in Macon. I was the hitting coach and Willie would come around and that was so cool and his impact on our young guys, I think, was really, really good. And I remember he ordered a couple of his bats, and the normal guy couldn't even pick the thing up. And I remember, I think till Chipper's last at bat in the big leagues, he used this big log his whole career. And Willie, I used to preach that with those guys and when they were coming up. And now it's the bats are really light and all and
whips.
But it's different than I get when those guys were growing up and how they were the guys they had to lean on.
Brian Snitker is here in studio with us. We're going to talk to Kirby Smart at 11:30. Have you met Kirby?
Oh, yeah. No, I've had him out to, we kind of forged relationship when he would come to games and bring his kids.
Right.
And they'd go out in the outfield and shag and always like, coming around. I've gotten to meet some really, those college football coaches. I'm just amazed at their energy and how they're just on point all the time. And that job never, they don't get much time off and have a real healthy respect for them. And it was cool to, to talk with those guys and get to meet them. And like I say, Kirby's, he'd come out, his kids would be at Lake Point playing in tournaments.
Right.
And so he'd stop over for batting practice and really enjoyed, we'd text back and forth during the season and things like that. So
you want to ask him about Auburn this weekend? He's going to be on with us. Hang around for a couple of days. You ask him how
I was going to ask you, though, how much cross-pollination goes on? Like, you pick their brain and they pick your brain?
It's interesting, because most of the time they'll come into the office after the game and we'll talk. And it is. It's interesting, and how big of fans those guys are, too, baseball fans and Braves fans. I mean, I've had Dabo Sweeney in. He does a boys trip every year, and they make the Braves game part of their stop. He came out to Denver with his kids in that trip last year and saw us. And so it's interesting to get where those guys are.
This is sort of do you remember the first time you bought a brand new car? Because I'd imagine it was a little bit later in your life than maybe it was.
Yeah. I think I bought my wife a Cougar.
Any idea how many
That is a
years
Mercury model, folks, if you don't know.
But you're not making money.
No.
And you have a couple of kids, and you go, wait, I got to get an off-season job, and I'm not sure if a new car is really what we do.
No, I know.
Here.
Well, I built houses. I worked in a pipe yard in South Louisiana. We talked about it. I used to have to balance my checkbook to go to Kroger. And we'd get into a town, and she'd go to a consignment store and get a set of bunk beds, and we'd sleep on a mattress on the floor in a 3-bedroom apartment with the pitching coach and the trainer.
The glamorous life of pro baseball.
Yeah. Well, and I would tell Susan Bailey, who was Hank's secretary, I said, when you call this apartment, there one of any about 6 people might answer the phone because we didn't have cell phones then. And so it was, she'd always call. It's like, Hank wants to talk to you. And the first thing he always asked was, how's family? How's Ronnie doing? And then we'd, talk baseball.
So for those that don't know, and you credited Hank Aaron many times over, he's the one that said you need to, was it a coach, a manager at the time?
I was.
A little bit of everything?
I got released, and I stayed with the AA team, kind of as actually to do the work.
So he saw in you what you didn't see in yourself at the time.
Yeah, pretty much. And I was, when he offered me that job, I was like, what else am I going to do? I mean, I was...
what was plan B?
Probably go back and finish school and be a coach.
Because Bobby told me it was Ralph Houck, and that whole story with him. He was going to go back. I think he said he was going to be probably a football coach and a baseball coach.
Yeah.
Like he was going to go back to California and just...
Yeah. Well, I probably would have finished my degree. I went back after my first year I signed out of the rookie league, and I went back to University of New Orleans and did the fall semester and actually did good. That first time in my college career that I did make good grades because I wasn't balancing anything else. And but I'd have probably went back and finished up there and probably ended up coaching, probably in the college ranks or something like that, I would imagine.
What's the difference we talk about with golfers? Like a guy's a scratch or a guy's a 2 handicap or a 4. But put that guy on the PGA Tour, he's not winning. Like he can go to his course and I'm a 2, but you got to go out and make money. What's the difference in the 1% of the 1% of guys who play professional baseball, but the guys who play, we mentioned Yogi Berra. You did the same thing for a living, except Yogi's the 1% of the 1% of the 1%. What's that line? What is it really that separates the guys who can stay 10 years or 15 years or eventually maybe even build a Hall of Fame career?
I that's the mindset. I mean, I think even in the minor leagues, you can look at guys that they have more talent than the next, there's a lot of guys that had more talent than Mark Lemke. But the determination and the drive and that focus that kid had was unbelievable. I'd go to the ballpark and, I'd run around the field and I remember in Sumter I'd have a little group of neighborhood kids. They'd be following me like the Pied Piper because they knew afterwards I'd pay them to go get the home run ball so I'd have good balls to throw in batting practice, and then I'd pay them to clean the bus. But I would, it's always funny. I'd get done and Limmer would be in that dugout with a chewing and his ball and a glove, and he'd be patting that ball, wondering kind of like where's everybody at, and he just had this drive that he wasn't going to fail, and it was unbelievable. He's kind of my bell cow as far as that goes. I mean, just to see the determination, and like I say, I gave him an opportunity to play. I knew it was at third base where he ended up breaking the lineup, and that first year I know we were in Sumter, and then we ended up at the draft getting guys we can move around. I finally put him at second base, and all of a sudden he started producing. And then he took him to Durham the next year and went there, and he kept doing well. And then I remember, I think he broke in, and when he was first in the big leagues, he played third base in Wrigley Field and just looked like a Gold Glover over there, because he was a really, really good infielder. And I know him and Glenn Hubbard to be out there, just as hubby pretty much made Marcus Giles. I was there. I witnessed it. It was one of the most unbelievable things I've ever saw in my baseball career.
So that was Clay, and that guy decides with somebody else's help, I can be molded into a major league player.
Yeah, you know what? You got to have the determination. You got to have some skill, obviously. And I said I went there. We were in Macon, and it was 100 degrees every day. And there, I hit the ground balls. And why? Because usually at the end of the summer, hubby was in better shape than most of our players, and he could, and just it was like magical watching him teach this kid and show him how to turn double plays and what to do. And then he ended up being an all-star in the major leagues. Because I said it was almost like we started that year, and the glove didn't fit his hand, and then at the end of that year, I said I was, if I hadn't have been there watching, I'd have never believed it. It was the darndest thing I've ever seen. And Hubby still is one of the greatest infield instructors I've ever seen.
Brian Snitker is here in studio with us, which leads us into Ron Washington. I'm not looking for you to say anything disparaging about anybody, but was there an element that was missing when Wash was gone?
You know what? I don't. Wash brought an unbelievable consistency to our players. And I think he helped teach them routine, which I've always said, these guys don't show up in the major leagues with routine. That's something that's learned, whether it's from a veteran player. If you're a pitcher, you learn, you watch Chris Sale, Charlie Morton, Max Fried, those kind of guys in between starts. Or if you're an infielder or an outfielder, you learn routine because, you don't come like a Nick Markakis or a Freddie Freeman with the routine that those guys had. And I think Wash was unbelievable. You can set your watch on what time Wash came through the weight room, and he'd do his exercises, and he'd grab his bag of balls and his smags, and he'd go out and wait on those guys, and he taught them routine. I mean, that's the greatest thing I think he did here.
Screw him once in terms of not showing up.
Oh, no, you're going to show up.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
You'll learn. And that's not happening again.
But you know what? And that's part of the routine. And he was unbelievable in teaching these guys a routine, which is the greatest thing I think that he did here. To say that I don't think any one coach is going to impact a team, and his loss, regardless of who it is going to be, because when that game starts, all that stuff's gone. But he was great here. I still talk to him now. I was concerned when he had his health issues. And to tell you a little story, I remember the Wednesday before I was driving to the ballpark, and we were going through a rough spot, and I was just leaving my house and my phone and my truck phone, and it was Wash, and he was worried about me. He called to see if I was doing okay, and I think 2 days, he didn't even mention himself, and 2 days later he checked himself into the hospital, but he was concerned of how I was getting along, through this rough spot. And he's a wonderful friend. He was a great asset to this our organization and our major league team. And you can't help but love a guy that loves the game like that. So it was really good when he was here.
Before we talk about what the next level, what you're going to be doing for a living. You're still a working man, by the way, and thank you for that, for not being a burden on us taxpayers.
You're still collecting a check.
I appreciate that. I know that you have emotional in you. I never asked you about this. That first day of the World Series, like you've been in postseason, you've been around big games, but you're in a different spot. When they introduce and everybody's on the line, you're in that first spot.
Yeah.
So I don't want to ask how'd you get through that without being overly emotional, because you got a game to manage coming up in a second. But did you take, we asked players, did you take it in? Did you look around the building?
I sure did. I mean, it was to think that, when I went out there, it's like, my God, I'm managing in the World Series. It was surreal to me because and like I said, I never thought I'd manage one day in the big leagues, let alone 10 years. And I remember I did that my first, probably was 17. And I think we opened with the Mets, and I remember going out on the line opening day and looking around, and Ronnie flew in, and I saw her up there, and that was a pretty emotional time too, my first full year to manage. And then that World Series thing was surreal now. I mean, I still have a lot of memories of standing, they take pictures of you in front of the trophy and do all this stuff before, and it was... You know what? As stressful and as big as that was a lot of fun. The World Series was fun. I didn't. The media was fun. Troy and I got to go on together at a pregame media session, and that was a lot of fun. The traveling from here to Houston and the send-offs, and you're getting all dressed up and you're in the World Series. I mean, that was a special time. And that whole run was.
Yeah, a lot of people thought it was special. They compare it to 91. I'm not saying it came out of nowhere, but when you look at that season and the struggles and the injuries, nobody thought that team would be in that position.
I didn't think at the All-Star break. I said I was home and didn't even enjoy the barbecue because I said we weren't treading water. We were underwater with a straw trying to stay alive. And I think we had an unbelievable schedule coming out of the break and getting to the World Series. I was just hoping we could finish 500 for the year. And then things kind of came together, and we made some great trades, and well, that worked out. The players worked out, and they performed, and then just the march to get there was surreal, and things happened. It was just like it was, to the fact that 87 people only. It's hard to do this, but you got to get into. And I'd always tell players, everybody's banging because you only win so many series and and rightfully so. But it's hard. It's hard to win a playoff series. Things got to go right, and in baseball, guys kind of cool off at a wrong time. Guys get hot at the right time and make plays that. The play, I still think the play that Eddie made in Rosario made in left field. I always said, I told Walt, I think it's like Beach was in his back pocket right there, Angel in the outfield helping him out, So.
Could you tell the Soler home run in Houston? Were you in a spot where you saw, because I think even Houston fans were kind of like, oh my God, what he just did.
Yeah.
Could you?
Oh, no, I saw great. Yeah, I had a great vantage
because he
point
looked back
that.
to make sure that all you guys understood what he just did.
I know.
Rightfully so.
That was exactly right. That was, and I loved when he came back the next year and got his ovation, and the fans were great and appreciative, and because there's not a greater guy on. I mean, he's this big hulk of a man and just such a sweet person.
You guys bucked the odds. You had a guy that you brought over who was struggling, hurt in Rosario, NLCS MVP. You got a guy in Soler who I think was hitting like 192, World Series MVP. You guys go back to back on acquisitions, being the guys who end up being called MVP of the series that matter to get you to the point to be world champions.
Oh no, and you know what? I called the guys in Kansas City when we got Soler, and they're like, Snip, this guy has been swinging the bat really well. Because, eventually, or starting out, I remember I was teetering when we got him. I said, are you going to platoon him? What are we going to do? Then I remember I went in and told the coach, I said, heck with it. We're going to, all the guys in Kansas City were way into this guy. And it's like, keep him going. I was like, shoot, we're going to play him. And, he did a great job for us. I remember talking to Jock, and he was on an island somewhere, and we were going to jet him in, and I said, well, I probably won't get there for the start of the game. And I said, well, good. Well, you can get the game winner in the 9th inning. And then he actually got up and had an opportunity to do that once he got in.
It's like Major League. You're calling a guy who's on vacation.
Yeah, he was. He was on spring break, or on, the All-Star break. And
thought you were joking. It was somebody else.
Exactly.
I don't have the time for this, like Tom Berenger in Major League.
Exactly. Hey, have you
hangs up on you?
I hate to ask, have you cleaned out your office yet?
I'm in the process. I mean, I've taken.
Is it hard?
Yeah, it's hard. Number one, because there's just after when you spend that much time there's a lot of stuff, and I've taken 2 truckloads home, and I got probably another one to go.
So people might not know. There's like usually a closet area.
That thing was. I started cleaning it out for the All-Star game, because I had to give my office up to Dave. And and that was a good excuse to start boxing stuff up. So I had Tony Farmer over there. I was like, Big Tone, you got to help me out here. And he's boxed stuff up. So I took a bunch of stuff home before the All-Star game, because I was like, it was getting to a point where I needed to do that regardless. And now I got some stuff on the walls and some champagne bottles. And probably the biggest thing I'm going to take back with me is Bobby's humidor. I said, that's coming with me, and that's going to go to a place special in my house.
What did it mean to have the brain of Bobby Cox to pick over the course of your managerial career?
I said the thing I miss most is the fact that when the stroke happened, I couldn't call him. And I still go over and see him, and we, he'll talk, and I just want to be with him and talk about things. But it was because every time I called him, he answered. And believe me, those first couple of years, there was a lot of calls. And he would come in every day, probably about 6:15 because I used to go down about 6:30 and sit with him at the other place. And we'd talk, about baseball, grilling, things like that. And I missed that, because he'd get a cup of coffee and come in and sit at the head of my desk, and we'd just sit and talk about things.
I don't know this. When did you sort of form a relationship? Like, we know that Hank saw something in you. What did Bobby see in you, and how did that relationship actually go to that kind of level?
I probably started in instructional league when I was managing instructional league, and back then it was 2 months. It was September 15th and November 15th, and you kept score, and you had a standings and things like that. And the manager would always come, regardless. I remember Joe Torre brought Murph down there one year, and then myself and Bruce Del Canton threw batting practice to him on a back field, and it was pretty cool too because his brother was working for Raleigh. And so he had all brand new baseballs, and he'd always leave them there for us when he was done. But it was pretty neat because I think he was very special in Murph's career. And Bobby came, and true to Bobby's form, I remember this. I was just a young minor league manager, and he would come in, and he had a gift of making everybody feel like they were the most important person in the room, whether it was. I used to tell people that we'd go out for dinner on the road, and I felt like I was running around with Mick Jagger because all the cabbies knew him. The lady at the door.
He's a rock star.
He was a definite rock star. And the lady was checking the door at the visiting clubhouse. He would come in and make her feel like she was the most important person. He'd sit in that dugout and smoke that cigar in the early afternoon, and every groundskeeper that wherever we were would come over and make sure to have a conversation. And Bobby, he had a unique gift to make everybody feel like they were the most important person there. When he come to instructional league, I was just a young coach, and you'd be throwing batting practice, hitting fungos, doing all that. Afterwards, it was just really special how he treated you. He wasn't this big league manager and better than you or anything, because I know he had came through the same processes that we were all going through. So he had a respect for you, and it was unbelievable. And I think that was the first time I met him. And then he invited me to big league camp, and in my first year I was going to manage in Anderson, and he wanted to keep me because I was catching in the bullpen, throwing batting practice, and he wanted to take me north with him to do that job. And I remember Hank told me later, he goes, I told him, it's like, no, I got plans for him. So but
one Hall of Famer blocked the other Hall of Famer from taking.
You ever wonder if Hank said go on, how much your career would have changed?
Yeah, it would have changed a lot. I'd have been probably broke down my arm. I already had 2 shoulder surgeries, so I probably had another one, and my knees would have been gone. And because I was going for the physicality of the job, and so I wouldn't be sitting right here talking to you guys. I know that.
Well, it's a big thrill for you. I know. Brian Snitker here in studio with us. So you talked about, I think you called it one of your recycle periods.
Yeah.
When you were kind of thinking about what you were going to do next. How close did it come for you getting out of baseball and doing something else?
You know what? It came close enough that I was getting numbers for farm directors and general managers and things like that. I didn't have a directory like I have now, so I was kind of calling guys that knew people. And actually, the first time my contract lapsed when John Sherholtz came in, and before he got established and they could get the minor leagues together. So it's kind of like I went a month without a check, and I thought, well, I better start looking. Because I got a young family and mortgage and all that kind of stuff. And then there was another time that during one of the recycles that I went home and it was after we won the division in 13 maybe, I think. And I got called in, and I heard they were going to tweak the staff. And I remember I got called in and on the morning or two after we got back from L.A. and I said, they said, can you come down to the ballpark? So I was like,
is this like bring your playbook? Is this the infamous?
This is like bring your playbook thing, yeah. And I thought, well, I got done with that meeting. I remember I called Greg Walker and I said, Walker, I'm the tweak. So that was recent. So I had to reflect there for a weekend. I told him I need the weekend.
That's when you managed AAA.
After that, yes. When I went to manage AAA for the second time.
This is a crazy story. I know we all know it, but when you say it out loud, you're the tweak, you go back down, you come back up. We know about the management change when AA takes over. I mean, this is not supposed to happen to anybody, your life.
I don't know how, Alex, I have to tell you how close I was to another recycle right there.
By the way, who came up with the term recycle? Because
that was just me.
Yeah, I sort of like it, but I'm kind of like, is that really what this was? But it's a nicer-ish term than perhaps other terms that could be associated with it.
Yeah, so, and I know the last one, my mom was in a nursing home actually right down the street from the AAA ballpark here in Lawrenceville. And I thought, God, if I leave and I go to another team, I'm liable to be in Arizona for spring training and who God knows where during the summer. And right now, I could take that, the AAA job here, and I can still, if I got to step away and take care of her, it's, who knows how this might end up being a good thing, because...
What would the 35-year-old version of you, like if you would have had a hot-headed moment and the 2 days would not have been enough to calm down?
Yeah, it probably would have ended different. Yeah. The pride and the ego getting away, and at that time, like I said, I had a responsibility to take care of her. And so I was just thinking along those lines that I said I was thinking I can step away from managing AAA for a couple of days if I need to take care of her. It's hard to step away. I think I missed one game as a third base coach when one of my kids graduated, and now hubby took over for a day for me, because that's not an easy job to just step into. And
I tell you what I like about maybe this ending in a way that, unlike a recycle, where everybody's upbeat about what's happening. I think if you're not with an organization, it's hard for them to ask, hey, the next guy coming in, you can play hands off. That's his job now. I don't want to be. I sort of like, there seems to be this idea that whoever ends up with a job, if they want to, they can pick your brain. If they want to, you can actually lay out more than, let's just say it didn't end well.
Right.
I kind of like a little bit of that symmetry going into, nobody had a better frontline seat as to what this team might need to do going forward. Why not take advantage of that?
Well, and that's kind of what I'm thinking. I'm got an opportunity now to do that if somebody wishes. It's Bobby never threw anything on me when I came in here. It was all, I initiated everything that he told me. When I'd call him, it's like, Skipper, what should I do right here? How do I handle this situation? What do I do, with this player, or because I honestly, when I came here, there was a lot of square pegs going in round holes here. And I remember I told Freddie, they were 9 and 27. I said, you guys might have been overachieving at that when I got into this place. So
were you brutally honest with everybody about that? Listen, we've got some work to do here.
No, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it is. And I said, it's going to take me a while to get a feel for this thing. And even though I knew, I'd had a bunch of those guys in the minor leagues, but there was a lot of guys I didn't. And there was a lot of guys that were aging and not well. And, it was, that was rough right there. I used to tell my wife, I was like, I think they could change the hinges on the office door about once every 2 weeks, because every time I turn around, somebody's coming in and closing it. And everything went across my desk then. Every issue, every clubhouse issue, every player issue, the front office, the trainers, the coaches, the strength guys, da-da-da-da. I mean, I was dealing with everything, and then we got to a point where I could kind of sit in my office, and that clubhouse would take care of itself, and I didn't need to go in there. I went in.
Greatest feeling in the world.
2 or 3 times, and I had actually had a player come in to me. He stuck his head in the door and said, I'll take care of that. And I'm thinking, well, you know what? We're getting something here. Now, all of a sudden, this thing's starting to get special.
Do you have a favorite moment from the 21 postseason run? A lot of people around here love the Tyler Matzik moment. The Soler home run obviously comes to mind as well.
That Tyler Matzik thing was surreal, and I love still watching his reaction.
Still gives you goosebumps as a Braves fan when we hear it.
Watch him come off that mound pounding, and to remember the situation that he came into and how he handled it. But I think the one thing, as I always say, with 2 outs in the bottom of the 9th inning, and I look across the field to see if I could see Troy. And I look over there, and I'm kind of catch his eye looking over. He's doing the same thing to me, and that was really special right there. And then we had a little time after the celebration calmed down, and somebody pointed over there and said, there's somebody over there in their dugout that's looking for you. And that, Ronnie and I went in, and that I'll never, that's stuff that just doesn't happen either.
So when are you going to Hawaii? When are you going to cash in on those tickets?
I'll tell you a story. So the other day, I want to take a little trip up to Illinois to see some friends, and I'm looking, and then all of a sudden, right in the middle of it, I told Ronnie, I was like, what are we doing? I said, we can go in May when the snow melts, and maybe I can see a game at this field. We don't have to crunch everything in.
You're just so used to thinking that
way, right?
Yeah.
And I did. I was like, what are we doing here? We don't have to go to Hawaii in January. We can go in April and May and something like that.
We can stay there for a month.
If we want. Exactly.
I saw you at a charity event after you had gone to Hawaii for the first time in your life, and you were like a kid. Like, you were giddy about the idea that you actually went on a vacation.
I know. Well, I told Ronnie, I was like, if I'm going to keep doing this, we got to start doing something other than, the only traveling we did when we were raising our kids, we'd go to Pittsburgh to her family or Illinois to see my family.
Just like Hawaii, same thing.
Yeah, we never did anything on our own or for us. So, but I did. I was kind of closed the date book and said, we'll deal with this later.
Well, let's go from one champion to another. Georgia coach Kirby Smart joining us. Brian Snitker here in studio with us. Coach Smart joining us on the Loud Security Systems Newsmaker line. Kirby, always great to have you on the program. Say hello to Brian Snitker.
What's up, Brian? You doing good?
Yeah, I'm doing good. I'm retired, man.
I know.
I'm doing
nice
great.
life. I tell you what, I thought about you all year. I appreciate our friendship and really happy for you, man. You did an awesome career, and now you get to sit back and be like all these guys. You get to be the experts now.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah, we have all the answers right here in the studio, Kirby. We say it all the time. Just ask us, we'll tell you.
That's right.
Exactly.
So a couple of weeks ago, you kind of talked about that with Nick Saban coaching as long as he did, and you said, I have other things I'd like to do. What are some, for Georgia fans that are wondering, what are some of the things, down the road, 10, 15 years you'd like to be doing?
Playing golf. I'd love to play some golf and have some good matches. Spend time with my kids, and hopefully they have some families by then and get to enjoy the grandkids maybe by that time. But I just enjoy being with my family and doing trips and going places with my wife and my kids. That's one of my favorite things to do.
I don't know if anybody wants to think about it, but if you do spend it for a second, Brian just said there's no calendar anymore. Like, he doesn't have to worry about a Tuesday in June is sort of the same as a Monday in October, because the calendar opens up to you. You guys are on such a regimen, and now more than ever, it's 365. I don't know how you guys do it really to that degree. How much do you think about the amount of hours that it actually takes to be successful at your job now?
You don't have time to think about the amount of hours because you're constantly doing it. You're just in season all the time, 4th and 1 every day. There really is no off season for us because our guys are student athletes, so we're with them. They don't get an opportunity to go off on their own and go be with their families. They're with us year round now, and there's really not much time that you're not thinking about your players or your program or something you can do better within your organization. So it's definitely 365.
Kirby Smart on the Loud Security Systems Newsmaker line. Brian Snitker here in studio with us. We asked Ned about it earlier, kind of to use the term again, cross-pollination, picking coaches from other sports' brains, especially when it comes to, routine winning championships. And I guess that's something that's prevalent, right?
Oh, yeah, no doubt. I mean, you learn from the best, and I love the doing it across sport, whether it's, baseball is such a mental game. It's less contact and physical, but it is such a mental game, and so many of our kids now are having to deal with the mental side of things, of the pressures of NIL, the decisions of money, family stressors of being the breadwinner in their family, and it's such a different dynamic, and you get to see it firsthand as it takes its tolls. I think I just enjoyed college and had fun and was carefree. These kids now, they're just under immense pressure to perform. They're getting treated sometimes because of their money like professional athletes at 18, 19 years old, and they're just sometimes not ready for that. And it's nice to share ideas with guys how they manage that.
I don't know how often, let's say, the open door policy, I don't even know if there is such a thing, but let's just say the amount of time. Do you remember becoming aware of the pressures that are now prevalent? I mean, for these kids, 18 to 22, 18 to 23, there's life stuff. Do you remember that sort of button going off on you where you go, maybe I have to talk to them at times a little bit differently than I would have in the past?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you're talking about me as a coach, not as a player. I didn't have those pressures until they told me I couldn't play football anymore, and then it was like, okay, what am I going to do? I was about 23, 24 when it all ended, and that's when the pressure hit me. You got to pay the light bill, But when for a coach, for like now, it's certainly different when you don't know the dynamic that kid's dealing with. He may be getting told, you made a bad decision, why are you there? And that tears at the fabric of growth. It tears at the fabric of how do I get better? How do I perform where my feet are? And, I'm a parent. I'm an athlete. I got an athletic son and daughter and kids. And you start thinking, well, are they in the best scenario? Are they doing the best thing? You see these kids moving around at early ages, even from sport to sport, from school to school. And so then it hits in college where first time something is difficult, and they're going to get difficult. But the first time something gets difficult, sometimes guys leave, and you have to be careful, and you got to be really smart. You got to establish relationships all throughout a young man so that you can help him grow and get better.
And Snit, you and Kirby both had to deal with the idea that you have kids coming, I don't want to say big fish, small pond, but they've never watched a game because they've always played. A lot of them have been stars. And then all of a sudden you see the struggle they go through when, not everybody's telling you you're fabulous every day because now there's competition and competition at another level. Can you just both maybe talk a little bit about that? When you see that for the first time, maybe in a kid's eyes, how do we work him through
Go ahead,
that?
Snit. You can answer first.
Well, no, it's because they've been raised differently. The society and their upbringing and things like that are different. When I first started managing 40 years ago, these kids were, like I said, I remember our high school football coach, they literally kick you in the rear if things weren't going right. And my God, you do that to a kid now, or you got to approach them differently. And when I managed in the minor leagues, I used to always want to know who the kids that didn't have a male in their life or grandma raised them and things like that. So you got to go at those kids differently. And to Kirby's point, you have to establish relationships with these kids so they trust you because they're not coming in trusting you. That's something that you have to earn from them. And then when you do that, then it's kind of like you can, get them to the next place. But even in the major leaguers, I mean, I said these, you got to approach them differently. You got to talk to them. There's no somebody I've heard, it's like, well, we need somebody to come in and raise hell and turn the table over and everything. You'll lose a guy in today's society doing that. I used to throw fungos through TVs and tip over, spreads and stuff like that to get my point across.
There go the cold cuts.
Yeah, if you do that now, these guys will look at you like you got two heads and turn you off. I mean, you have to go about them. You bring them in, you close the door, and you have a conversation. And that's a big difference from when I started doing this job, like I say, 40 years ago.
Kirby, your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree a lot with Ned. I mean, the approach has to be different based on who the kid is, what his background is. We try like hell to promote that failure is growth, and that so many of these kids have never failed, and they've never been criticized, and they've grown up in a comparison world because they can look at their best friend and see what they're doing right on their phone. And, when you see other people having fun doing things, you want to compare them to yourself. And if you fail, you feel like, man, I'm struggling. But that failure is growth. We try to have other players that have had success in the past really share that growth process with them because it's not easy. It's not easy to fail.
I know you're always striving to be better. If I just ask, how would you assess so far, and are you at a point now this season where you thought this group could be? And what's sort of the next evolution of this group?
Yeah, I'm definitely at a spot that I thought we could be. There's certain areas that I've been so pleased with this team in terms of resiliency, growth, like work ethic, attitude to practice. Like there's so many things I'm so fired up about. And then there's areas of concern where we've got to continue to get better. And if we want to go where we want to go, we got to improve. That we're not where we need to be. And I'm kind of like okay with that. I've accepted that like when you take on coaching, every team's different, and you've got to figure out as a coach what that team needs, what their strengths are, what you can rely on, and make the best of it because it's hard to change a lot of that in season, right? You got what you got. You got to go grow with it, and you got to find ways to emphasize their strengths.
Kirby Smart on the Loud Security Systems Newsmaker line. Brian Snitker here in studio with us. And I would imagine there is some kernel of truth to what Lane Kiffin said. The days of the dynasties in college football are over. You've talked about the depth and how things have changed.
Oh, it's changed immensely. I mean, it's. I don't know. I can say for certain the days of the dynasty are over, but the dynasties will be where the players are, and the players and the people that have the most and the most depth. If they can get that, they're going to always have an opportunity to win. It's just a lot less margin. I mean, we've already seen a lower margin in conference games this year than ever before. It's been tighter. This weekend is predicted to have like 5 or 6, one-score type games. I mean, it's just tighter ball games, which it kind of highlights what the TV wants, which is better games, and it boils down to late game decisions, and smaller things make a bigger deal when that margin's closer.
I thought Shane Beamer said something interesting the other day. He had a press conference this week where somebody pointed out who the next 5 opponents for South Carolina are. And it was sort of like, what, you don't think I know that? And by the way, the other part is we have kids coming here to be in the middle of this. Why do I have to look at this as a disadvantage? I'm turning it into an advantage. We're telling you that this is going to be tough. Now go be tough.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's this league, you're going to play in big-time matchups. You're going to play on TV. I mean, people aspire to be in this league. That's the one side of the story. They want to play in this league. They want to be in the big games. They want to get seen by the NFL scouts and talent pool. But they also want to play. And not everybody gets to play in these on these programs because their coaches are under a lot of pressure to play the best players. They've got to go out and execute, and there's not 85 guys playing at these schools every week, so somebody's not playing.
Brian Snitker in studio with us, Kirby Smart on the Loud Security Systems Newsmaker line. Snit told the story, for those that don't know, about Hank Aaron seeing something in him to become a coach and then a manager. I think people, for the most part, know you are the son of a coach. You talked about paying the bills when you were 23. When did coaching enter your realm of thought?
About the time I got cut. I mean, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I got a degree from Georgia, and once they told me I couldn't be a player and I wasn't good enough, and I got cut, I immediately thought, okay, here we go. I got to make a decision. My dad's been in this line of work for a long time. I love it. I enjoy it. I think I can be good at it, but I just don't know if this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And I looked around at some other options, but none of them interested me like coaching, and then I fell into the trap that I'm in now, baby.
Can I ask both of you guys, when somebody tells you that the playing part is done, do you look around for affirmation from somebody else? Like you go to a different doctor and he'll tell me better news. How long can you live in that world of sort of, but maybe you're not right. I'm telling you, I have a little bit more in me. Can I ask how you both handle that?
I was realistic with myself. I think I was just like, because I saw, I was in AA and I saw all these guys and I'm thinking, I can hold my own here, but I'm not at that level that they are. So I just felt really fortunate that, I was afforded the opportunity to stay in a game that I really loved and could make a difference in doing that. When I was young and healthy, could throw all day and do the physical work, and that kind of, got me through to when I started to manage.
Coach, how about you?
Yeah, I knew once I got to the NFL, I saw it. There's things I could do better than some guys, but there's a lot of things I couldn't, and I knew they had to make hard decisions. I wouldn't have kept myself either, and I didn't want to. I got a chance to go over to NFL Europe and go play, and I was like, man, I'm not good enough now. What's going to change? I'm 23, play football all my life. I'm not getting better, so I just. I said I got to get into coaching, and the relationships I formed there helped me because to this day the guys who cut me are still in the NFL, and I have a relationship with them, and I really appreciate that.
Well, Coach, listen, we know you got to run. We have to ask the proverbial question about going to Auburn on Saturday, and I guess if you've seen 100,000 plus in Knoxville, on the road in the SEC, this is pretty much going to be it.
Yeah, this is a great atmosphere, man. They do an unbelievable job. I tell people all the time, like every game I've coached there consecutively for so many years because of the Alabama and Georgia tie to play in there. It's just incredible how much passion and energy they pour into that stadium, and I have a lot of respect for that. I grew up close to there, so it's always an exciting, fun place to play.
All right, well, listen, Coach, we appreciate you coming on. Good luck on Saturday and hanging out with us and talking to Snit a little bit.
Hey, Snit, get that thing down to about a 3 or 4 handicap and come play with me, okay? I'll take you as my partner.
You got it. I'm going to the range as soon as I leave here, too, because I went yesterday, so that's part of mine, too. And I'll see you Saturday. I'm coming over to that game, so maybe I'll run into you before the game.
Good. Enjoy it.
All right.
Enjoy it. Thank you, guys.
Anytime. Kirby Smart, head coach at Georgia on the Loud Security Systems Newsmaker line. Did you have to do that with some guys? They felt the pressure. Like, it's NIL here. Yeah. But a guy signs a huge contract, and he's feeling the weight of the world on his shoulders.
No, absolutely. That's part of it. I mean, like he said, this thing and what I said earlier, it's a mental grind. It's how you handle, can try and keep that even keel every day for 7 months. I mean, because it's 200 games once we start, the end of February, and there's a way to do it, and you have to experience it to learn how to do it. Getting those guys through that first full year, pitchers and position players, because most of them they come up and they're playing in September when normally the minor league season used to be over September 1st. Now they look up and they got a month left, and if you're a team like us, you're expecting to go to the playoffs, and then that's another 3 or 4 weeks. So they're how to do that is nothing that you have to do it to learn how to do it.
How do you think your eye is looking at a 17, 18-year-old or maybe a college guy?
Yeah.
Because I know that you do it now, but there's other people who sort of say he's on the backfields. When he's ready, we'll move him up.
Right.
But you talked about maybe going to a high school game or a college game. And, do you have visions of sitting there going, I don't know if anybody else sees this, but that guy's a wow.
You know, and that's the one thing I know that I remember when Perry Manasseh was here as assistant GM, Bobby would always jump in the car in spring training. They'd go to a college game or a high school game because they wanted his view on what was going on. And I told Alan Butts, who used to be, with us at the big league, he's now a scout for us. And I said, Butsy, I'm going to come jump in with you and go see some games. And I wasn't kidding when I said I'm looking forward to going. All of our minor league clubs are relatively close, and going and seeing what it looks like.
How many innings does it take to realize that kid's a little bit different than those kids?
Yeah, well, I'll let you know.
I mean, do you look forward to that?
Yeah, I do look forward to it, to seeing. And I remember I said last week, I'm kind of looking forward to seeing where the next Ozzie Albies is. I read game reports. I don't know who anybody is. And I go, a lot of times I'll take the card around in spring training, if so-and-so's pitching here or there, just to, see what these kids look like. But it'll be kind of cool to sit in the stands, I think, and watch everything. Watch, how they handle adversity and when they're going bad, what is their body language like in the field and things like that.
Are you a loafer? Like that infamous.
Well, yeah,
look for that.
Oh, absolutely. And I used to talk to scouts with it. I had a couple of good friends that would cover our minor league teams, and I'd get their take on what was going on. I didn't want an organizational take. I wanted them from an outsider they pretty much hit it right on the head, and a lot of it was about that kind of stuff. But I think we had a really good draft this year, and it'll be interesting to go around and look at some of those kids.
I don't want to end on a negative note, but you talk about adversity. Were the last 2 years two of the craziest years you've ever seen? The injuries last year and then whatever happened this year.
Well, there's injuries again this
injuries
year.
again.
Right. You know what? We lost all our position players two years ago, and we made the playoffs. So that just kind of solidified the fact that I knew, because you go at the end of the year and you look at the stat sheet, and probably the first 6 teams in pitching are going to be in the playoffs. That's not the same on the hitting end, and we saw that because we went out and I remember Whit Merrifield was in the hole one day, and I said, Whit, we're running out of you rejects to play even, but we had our pitching, and we led Major League Baseball in pitching that year.
And then Sale gets hurt.
And then this year we lost all. I showed somebody in my book, and it was, 2 Tommy Johns, a broken elbow, a cracked rib. We lost the entire shoulder surgery.
A
with
record
Lopez.
71 players.
It was the whole rotation.
The whole rotation, and Spencer coming off missing a year. So that just showed. And we lost Joe Jimenez, and we lost A.J. Minter, who was the heavy lifters in our bullpen to get us to Iggy the year before. And it's about pitching. This thing is about pitching. Obviously, you got to hit, and then you got to play defense. And I think we led Major League Baseball in defense this year. But you know what? The pitching, we didn't have the strength. And, I said, if we didn't won half the one-run games that we lost, we'd have been right there probably in the playoffs, even losing all the pitching.
You at one point, and it wasn't even like the last couple of weeks, you had played in over 50 one-run games.
Yeah.
50. That's like a third of a season. You guys hadn't even reached like the 140 game mark yet, which is just sort of...
It was crazy. It was crazy, and we had some guys that were, then we lost Austin for an extended period of time, and Ronald wasn't here in the beginning, and then it took him a while to get his going. We lost Profar for 81 games, the first 4 days of the season he was gone, and that was a big deal. Those are big losses in conjunction with losing all the pitchers.
I can tell you what I heard about him. He made it as right as you can make it. He made it with his teammates in the organization.
Profar.
Is that true?
No, he did. Yeah, he did. He talked to the guys, and it went about as well. He's a wonderful young man. I mean, I love the makeup. I hate the fact that happened. And there's no excuses. There's no, it's preventable. There is too much now these days to not. There's no, But so I hated that part of it because he's a really good kid. He's a really good player. He got better in the outfield this year. Loved him. I don't know where the new guy will hit him, or anything.
Is it funny to say new guy?
It's funny to hear you say it to me.
Yeah, kind of.
Let alone you.
Yeah.
Do you have, without saying a name, you want to say a name, do you have in mind who you would...
Well, there's I do. But you know what? that's for other people to decide, obviously. And the only thing I said, I'll help whoever comes in as much as I can. If they want it, if they call, I'm gonna answer the phone and give them my take on things.
There's never been a guy who's won that Nick and I over 25 years have never asked. The joy of winning compared to the I almost used the bad word again.
The agony of losing.
Yeah. One is always heavier than the other, and it really is strange that most of you guys, as competitive as you are, as much as I love that moment, that was incredible. You go, yeah, but the seesaw is a little bit weighted on the.
It is.
I wish I had that one back.
The highs are never as high as the lows are low. That's for sure in this thing, and it's agonizing. I mean, you roll over in bed, and I did it all the time, because it's like anytime you bring a pitcher in and he gets hit, it's the wrong move. They get the guy out. It's a great move. I mean, that's as simple as that. There are things that you never perfect this. This game, I don't think a guy can play this thing for 100 years and there's still going to be things they can learn and things they can get better at. And it's just like Kirby said, you know what? You're always looking to make yourself better, make your organization better. All the Hall of Famers that I was blessed to have been around, till the day they walked out the door and onto the stage in Cooperstown, we're all still trying to perfect things and get better, make changes.
Well, just remember, you can go to Hawaii anytime you want. Enjoy the driving range. You can also do that now, anytime you want.
That's what I walked in the door yesterday. My wife said, "Where you been?" I said, "I'm retired. I don't have to tell you. I can go and do whatever I want."
It's all a secret.
Can I ask? I know you like to walk. Will a second walk at 4:00 in the afternoon on game day, will that really satisfy you? You walk in the morning, and then you're sitting around. You go, "It's 4:00. I should be, but I'm not there."
I might do that.
Will another walk satisfy you?
It'll probably for the moment.
Do you have earbuds? Do you?
I don't. You know what? Because I don't want anybody sneaking up on me, or I want to hear cars and all that kind of stuff. I get paranoid about that. I see people walking all the time with the earbuds, and I haven't been able to do that yet.
You want to know what's coming. Snit, thank you for coming in. Congratulations on all of your accomplishments. I'm sure we're going to see you down at spring training and see you many times over.
And a lot of people, the city does. Look, again, there aren't a lot of champions. We have not in this city had a lot of championship runs. There is a thank you that I think a lot of people in this city would like to afford you, Kirby, and others who have actually sort of had that celebration.
And I appreciate it immensely. And like I said, this job, I didn't know the scope of it till I actually sat in the seat, and the responsibility you have to a fan base, to an organization. And I've said it for 10 years. Braves country is real. The fans are real. It's unbelievable. I went to Publix yesterday, and I'm unloading my golf cart, and some guy walks up behind me and he goes, "I got this, Skip," and he took my basket, and then he came back and it's been heartwarming. What I've seen from the real fans. The real fans,
Hold on, the guy took your golf cart back in?
No, not my golf cart, the grocery cart.
Yeah. But I'd be a little insulted by that. What do you? I can do this. I know. I
was honored, especially. Oh yeah, he said, "I got this, Skip."
Some coaches and managers, and sometimes they throw rotten tomatoes at you when you go to the grocery store. So it could be worse.
Well, he wasn't pushing his into me, so I was grateful for that.
That's good too. Thank you for coming in, and congratulations on everything. Brian Snitker here in studio with us.